Yo, what's outside is within. The mind regulates the hand that masters the pen. The pen is mightier than the sword, but the tongue is mightier still. The stargate to the mind's revealed. The vortex. Peace, peace, peace. Cyclonious, your host, and we're here again with Kevin for a real talk with Kevin. And today's issue we'd like to bring up is about guilt. I've split up the questions today in two categories. The first category will be like from an everyday mindset, so something a bit more relatable, dealing with real world situations. And then the second half of the questions will be from a therapeutic mindset, so you're dealing with it being clinical, reflective and educational. So yeah, in between each time I'll be asking people what do they think, you know what I mean, if they agree, to let us know, if you can send likes or something. And if you've got questions at the end of when we ask these questions, it'll be cool if you have left questions, we can send that to Kevin and see what he thinks. You good, brother?
Yep, I'm fine.
Okay, so the first question, yeah, is why do we often feel guilty for doing things that make us happy, especially if it means saying no to others?
That's quite a deep question. I think sometimes it's immersed in your upbringing a lot of the time. Mm-hmm. The interactions with your family and friends, and sometimes things are based on an expectation, mm-hmm. your own ideas of what people expect of you, mm-hmm. And sometimes that's wrong, because sometimes the dynamics in relationships are quite strange. There's an unknown area in regards to how people feel about doing something or saying something or whatever. So people expect Kev to be Kev in every situation. Mm-hmm. But I'm not always Kev in every situation. I'm a different Kev in every situation. So with my mum, I'm a son. And more than likely I'll always say yes, mm-hmm. to anything that my mum asks, even though I may grumble about it. And with certain friends, you may always say yes, but you know certain friends in a certain capacity. Mm-hmm. Now, because you've had a long-term relationship, there may be an expectation from your friend that you will do this, that, or the next. But the way you've perceived your friend over time, you know either that's a friend you can't trust with your girl, you can't trust, you know they're close, but you know about them. Mm. You're not that guy that's going to come with your missus and then go somewhere. You know that's a good friend, you've had them for over 30 years, but you know their tendencies. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you don't leave yourself open to any situation arising. So that same friend, you might not leave your girl there. You might not leave your friend around some money or ask them to look after money, mm-hmm. because you know how they are with money. Mm-hmm. Now, they don't know that you feel like that. They don't know over time that you've done this analysis of them, just like they've done one of you. Or maybe not, they haven't. But when they ask for something, can I borrow some money? Yeah, over the years, that's already been tested. Mm. You haven't got the money back over the years. You may have let it go. Yeah, but that set the precedence for you to say, all right, no. But because that person's your friend, when they ask, you still feel a way, because they don't know that you feel a certain way about them in regards to your missus, in regards to money or whatever else. So sometimes it can be quite difficult because there's still an unknown area that people hold in their heads about. It's unknown to them because that person's holding that in their head about them. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So a lot of the time you might be in situations with friends and whatever, and everything's good, and they ask one question and then it can become unsettling for you. Yeah. Because they've got an expectation that you're going to deliver, but you know you can't deliver because of past history. Okay. How do you guys feel about that? Please let us know in the comments there. I mean, guilt. We're talking about guilt today, but there's so many different dimensions to guilt. It's unreal. It can't be exhausted in the time that we've got, you know. For real. I hear that. Can guilt ever be a good thing?
like a sign of having a conscience, or does it just hold us back?
I think there's duality to that. I think in some cases it depends on how reflective you are. There's some people that when it comes to introspective type of reflection, thinking about your thoughts and understanding why you're feeling guilty, addressing the sort of root cause of the feeling of guilt, yeah, that can promote change in that person. It's when the guilt becomes all consuming and it's my fault, it's my fault, it's my fault, then it can become a dangerous situation for you in regards to you being consumed by it and feeling depressed and anxious about why you're feeling that guilt or the reason why. Because sometimes with guilt, it's funny, it just it's sort of on this sort of merry-go-round in your head. 1 minute you're feeling all right, but then it pops up again, maybe about the same thing. So for some people it can be really debilitating. For some people it can be the sort of precursor to push them forward and make a change.
So why would you say some people feel guilty about things that happened years ago, even if they've changed?
You know, I'm smiling because I've experienced that. There's things that you do when you're younger that because you've changed and you become such a different person to the old person that you were, sometimes you can look back and in disbelief about who you were. Sometimes, you know, you may have done certain things that you would not do now. So depending on who you've done it to, it might be someone that you know that you've done it to, that you're still sort of in close proximity, and every time you see them, it pops up. You feel away, and in situations like that, for me, I felt away, and I've always wondered, are you feeling away every time you see me, even though you're acting okay with me?
Yeah.
You know, so I think things just stay with you. Memory is a strange thing. You know, whether it's from your sensory memory to your working memory to your episodic memory to your semantic memory, all those different areas of memory, they operate in a particular strange way, depending on what habits you got as well, if you drink alcohol, if you smoke. And I think sometimes, like especially if you take substances, sometimes random things can just pop up in your head related to the past. I mean, it can happen anyway without being a substance taker. But when you take certain substances, things come up and they're quite prominent in your head certain times. So your memory is one thing, but I think your development as a human as well. I think that guilt, when it works in a real good way, that reflection will sort of initiate this state in you where you think, all right, that will never happen again, and I'll never do those things again.
Is there a difference between feeling guilty and being responsible?
Yeah, because I think when you're responsible, it can initiate action. Yeah, I don't think that especially if you've got the ability to talk. I think when you feel guilt, sometimes it's so overwhelming. It's hard to actually address the situation with someone if it is a situation where it's related to someone specific, because you can have all kinds of guilt about spending your money or whatever, or not saving this or whatever it is. But I think when it comes to someone specific, that level of guilt. Can you go through to say that again?
Is there a difference between feeling guilty and being responsible?
Yeah, I think that guilt can be all consuming. So the guilt's on you, you feel a way about something, but it's not like a taking on a responsibility, because you're stuck in the guilt. You're not coming back and saying, all right, I'm responsible for this, I've got to go and talk to Neville about it now. I'm here feeling guilty, but I become so consumed that I become afraid to talk to you about the situation.
Why do we sometimes feel guilty for not feeling guilty about something we were expected to do?
It depends. Society is quite strange, because there's laws and rules and moral codes that you adhere by. I mean, otherwise there'd be chaos in the world. And sometimes, because of those rules, laws, codes, and the teaching the parents, etc. You're taught that you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that, you shouldn't do the next, blah blah blah. And sometimes if there is a transgression that you make, based on what codes and laws and rules are about, you feel that you violated them. And it might not be anything heinous or really bad, but it's hard to get over that because it's already been set a set of rules that we're supposed to abide by. I mean, even little things can sort of wind you up. I mean, even just down to parenting's a big thing. Even some people are like, oh, you're telling your child don't put your finger in the plug socket. And they do it, and then you shout, and then you feel guilty about the shouting, you know.
Oh yeah, people, please, with what we're saying and all that, please respond. Let us know your thoughts and your feelings, because at the end we can read them out and just reflect back on those things. How does guilt show up in everyday habits like eating, spending, or even relaxing?
Well, it depends on the person you are. You know, if you're a very hard worker, and you've been sort of, to a certain extent, you're embedded in the system of work that we're in. If you've been working for 5, 10, 15 years, you work at a certain rate. Anything less than that, when you take a breather, you start experiencing some guilt. And sometimes I think the system has you like that anyway. It has you working overtime, and you can't help yourself. So, getting a little respite, you fall into the guilty zone. Like, I'm always supposed to be working. Working in education, you see it all the time. Teachers, the top tier of that feeling of guilt. Any given moment, whether it's marking or whatever you're supposed to be doing, if there's work that you're supposed to be doing, well, that's all right, I'll do the work. But when the work's done, for teachers, there's always extra work, but you need a rest. You've got to look after your well-being, but still, I should be doing this, so people go overboard. And
pressure of expectations.
Exactly.
How can guilt affect your ability to enjoy success, especially if you've come from a rough background?
Yeah, I think it can operate in two ways. I think it can be something that's debilitating, thinking about, there's always, especially when you're working class. When you're working class, sometimes there's this person that you didn't want to become. You might look at people that are middle class or upper class, and you've never wanted to be like them. But you've steadily started moving in that direction. You're starting to move with people like the people you didn't really want to move with. You wanted success, but you come from a place where the dynamics are different. It's like moving from ground level into management. The dynamics are different up there, and you have to operate in a different way. But the vocabulary, the way people behave different. People say that if you exist in a working class environment, that working class people are down to earth. Yeah, there's this word bougie that's associated with more middle and upper class, and a lot of working class people don't like that. I'm not going to be bougie, I'm not going to be like this. So sometimes when you start moving into that realm, and sometimes you have to assimilate into that to survive or succeed or be successful. And then when you find yourself changing into this person, you start feeling guilty. People may even reinforce that by saying, you think you're big now because you're you're a therapist, or you're this, or you're a doctor, or blah, blah, blah. And then stick it on you, and then the sort of guilt is sort of intensified. So it's quite hard to navigate the guilt, especially when it's based also on the expectations of people that you won't change. Some people are, they sort of induce the guilt in you by being like that. Because didn't you want that person to be successful and change?
Yeah. Would you say that parents, do they feel more guilt than others? For example, guilt about working too much or not being perfect.
I'll go based on my own experiences in regards to being a parent. I think before I had children, guilt was something I could just brush to the side quite easily. It might pop up like an intrusive thought sometimes, the guilt, but you could always bat it to the side. But I think once you have children and you have a responsibility to these little entities that you're so in love with, that if anything happens to them physically or emotionally, and you can't manage it or you can't handle it or you feel you deal with it in the wrong way, it's gonna upset you and induce a certain level of guilt, and it could be down to anything. You could have. I remember one time I was sleeping on the couch and I had my boy on the couch. It was low. It was a long time ago. He must have been quite young, about 2, and I've fallen asleep with him in my arms. Hey, he rolled out of my arms. He went onto the floor. But you know how long that was with me?
Oh, of course, yeah. I can imagine.
That was with me. He didn't get hurt. He was more shocked than anything else. Yeah. That made me, things like that never happened with me and my kids. But that made me tighten up even more in regards to my parenting. But at the same time, and again, it has popped up. It would, it consumed me for a while. It'd pop up in my head for weeks and months. Then it fade out. Then I'd be driving the car one day and be like, oh my God, the drop chain on the floor. So I think as a parent, and there's different situations. I mean, single parents, and they've got no control over the situation. I'll say single mums, but it can also be single dads. But I've seen it a lot more in single mums because I've experienced them a lot more. But the dad leaving for whatever reason, and they feel guilt, so they overcompensate with their child, and instead of being a parent, they become their brother or sister or best friend, and then things get hard. But the guilt inside of them is based on that husband and the father not being there, but that's not their fault. And then they get consumed with guilt of the person leaving, but it doesn't serve well for them day to day, especially when they're dealing with their child in a particular way. That really, when you start dealing with your child in that way, the parental power goes.
How does guilt play out in relationships, like romantic or family ones?
Boy, it can get deeper in relationships. I mean, relationships nowadays, they're different. I mean, more so because of social media. Yeah, so let's not beat around the bush. There's men and women out there that are on Insta or whatever. They're sneaking a good old look at, because everyone's half dressed. Not everyone, I'm sorry. But there's a lot of people half dressed on there, whether it's in regards to training or just showing off their body or whatever. So there's men out there that are looking at women. There's women out there that are looking at men. When they're together with their partner, they're all in love. But they don't know that their partner's looking at other men. They're not going to do nothing, but it exists in this realm of fantasy sometimes. And you may never cheat on your partner, but what is it when you're desiring someone else on the screen? And then later on you go away, or times are good with your partner. They might always be good. You go out for a meal, and then you feel guilty about what you're doing, but you've become addicted to it. Just like pornography. There's a lot of people out there watching porn. Their other half doesn't know what's going on. And that's just social media stuff, whether sending a message to someone on the sly, and you've got some communication going on with someone. Nothing really, it's not going to go anywhere, because you could be communicating with someone nowadays in America or wherever, and building up some friendship that if your partner found out, they'd be upset. But you're still feeling guilty, but you've got this compulsion to do this because it's not going to be found out. I mean, there's so many different elements to guilt in relationships and friendships in families, when you might have situations, bad treatment from parents. So you've got the grandparents that have treated the parents badly, they're guilty. That's why now the grandchildren are treated really nicely because they've treated the parents so badly. So it plays out in all different ways. You might have the long lost not even long lost, the uncle that's been in prison for so long and in and out. But you see the nephew, as a consequence of his relationship with the uncle, has now picked up on how the uncle is, and it's become like the uncle started getting in trouble. That even the uncle doesn't see the nephew that much, is feeling guilty when he's out now because he can see what's transpired with the nephew. So I mean, there's so many different little things that could induce a feeling of guilt in family, friends, and all kinds of relationships. It's, you know, there's a multitude of them.
What does secret guilt look like? You know, when you feel ashamed about something that no one knows about. But how can that play out?
That's held.
Okay.
That's held.
Yeah,
that's held a lot of the time. Held, consume you, pop up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's things, and people know. There's no one on this planet. Let me not say that, because everything's on a spectrum. Yeah, it's like, what's that film with Bruce Willis when he's got superpowers?
What is that?
Was it Glass? Samuel L. Jackson.
That's what it is. Yeah, I think is it Glass or is it I don't know if it's that thing Red or whatever it was.
There's something, but they made 3 of them anyway. But there was extremes. There was Samuel L. Jackson that was weak as hell.
Is it called Unbreakable?
Yeah. He had bones like glass, and he was the weakest. And they had Bruce Willis, who was the strongest. So along that spectrum, you can get all kinds of different levels of guilt. What was the thing again?
What does secret guilt look like when you feel ashamed about something that no one knows about?
So not everyone is going to keep it a secret. Some people might tell it. We live on a planet with, I think it's maybe 8 to 10 billion people. Someone's going to let out a secret one day. Someone's going to hold it for life. But out of all the people on the planet, there's a lot of people that have got one secret or 2 secrets that are never told to anyone. Yeah, and that's it. You could be in therapy with your therapist, and there's some things that are never going to be told because you don't know what kind of response you're going to get. If I said to you, all right, Nev, you know, sometimes when I'm on the streets and I'm walking, I get this feeling to touch someone inappropriately. How do I say that to you without you feeling a certain way about me? I'm not going to do it, but I'd say never keeps on popping up in my
What do you mean, like in an everyday setting? Like
I'll just go to the gym and then I see someone sitting down and I say, Nev, you see that guy there? I felt like touching his bum.
I don't think majority of people will come out and express that sort of feeling. I think most people would most probably try to do something like that in a professional setting, if anything.
Yeah.
I don't think in a normal setting people would, maybe through shame and stuff like that.
Yeah, and that's the thing with guilt comes out as well, the mad shame. So there's certain things that you're not going to be able to tell anyone. I mean, there's secrets that go to people's graves when it comes to guilt, you know, and guilt because of something they're thinking and haven't done. I'm not going to do, but because it's a reoccurring thought, like an intrusive thoughts, and if people are getting intrusive thoughts that are very intense and frequent, the guilt weighs heavier on them. I mean, everyone has I mean, I've had thoughts that I'll be driving, something pops up in my head, well, what's going on? But then you brush it to the side. Some people aren't that lucky. They have that going on day in, day out. You know?
Can't shake it.
No.
Why do we carry guilt for things that weren't even our fault, like trauma, family conflict, or survival?
You know, family trauma and guilt and survival and guilt, I mean, we'll get into some other questions, but in regards to the therapeutic sort of elements of it, but I probably won't answer that now because prenatal and postnatal dynamics and processes have a real impact sometimes on your experience of guilt. So maybe when we get to the other questions I'll answer.
Flip back on that.
Yeah.
No problem. Why do we tend to feel more guilty when doing better than people around us?
I think that's really about social stratification in your class. Yeah, I think there's an expectation. I'm not wealthy in any way, shape or form, but I think at the top end of the social structure, people are in competition, but there's an expectation that you're going to be all right. They know that you're an accountant, you're this, you're a CEO, blah, blah, blah. Everyone's in the game sort of admiring what you've got and, you know, just living the same similar sort of lifestyle. When you're on a working class level, a more impoverished level, it can be a roller coaster ride. But when you start moving up and everyone's stuck, like I said before, people start looking at you in a particular way. But then you feel some people that are really, really empathetic feel a way and experience guilt because they wished they could do more for the people. I don't like to say beneath them, but beneath them on a monetary level, and would want to help them. I maybe want to help all of them, but they feel guilty they can't help them out. But also, like I said before, people put it on you. Oh yeah, Kev thinks he's like that. Neville thinks he's like that. Now he's got a Mercedes. Yeah, the car means nothing to you. You've just amassed an amount of wealth that you could buy a car now through your efforts. But now people are looking at you a certain way. And some that vocalize it, and you can't do much to change their predicament because you're not making millions and millions of pounds. You start feeling guilt because of that. You know, there's some people that have got like psychopathic personality traits, and it doesn't matter. The guilt doesn't even come into it. You know what I mean? There's no feelings of guilt there. But you know, people come up, they work hard, they share their experiences of struggle together, and when people are left struggling, it's hard to observe it when you're not struggling anymore.
That's true. Real talk. What is the difference between guilt and shame? And why does guilt sometimes turn into shame?
I think, you know, you might go out, you know, if you go out into Wood Green Shopping City and you're walking around and your penis is hanging out, yeah, you're not going to feel guilty. Yeah. You understand what I mean? Yeah, you're going to feel shame.
Yeah.
You know, straight away there's certain situations that it exposes something. Sometimes with guilt can be quite hidden. There's no exposure. Something's happened that's unknown. Usually with shame, quite a few times something's happened that maybe a lot of people have witnessed. And you feel that feeling of embarrassment and shame. I think that guilt's quite a strange entity where, all right, you can feel guilty for something, but sometimes people don't even know what it's about.
So guilt is just, would you say it's like more of a personal thing?
Yeah.
About how you look at
I mean, shame's quite personal because little things might shame someone. So I might be I knew I got this feeling when I was at uni. Being an older guy in uni is quite a strange predicament to be in. And you have to be really strong in regards to understanding that you're there to learn and not to experience and not have feelings of shame when you put your hand up to answer a question in a lecture and you get it wrong. Yeah, so other little things can induce, because that wouldn't be a guilty feeling, you just feel shame. You know, that's why a lot of the times, and it's quite a strange phenomenon, even in classrooms or in university lectures, what I found out is that there's enough people out there that want to put their hands up when a question's asked, but everyone's scared to get it wrong, so a lot of people don't put their hands up. You know, just because of that shame element.
Is it normal to feel guilty for cutting off toxic people, even if it was necessary?
It depends on you. Some people are still still immersed on a relationship that was. You know, and if that person's real toxic, you may hold on to them for the longest time. Only because you're always reflecting about the relationship you used to have. If you've come up from primary, you know, and then secondary, you've gone through certain experiences, you've talked that deep stuff with them, they know about this relation, that relationship. They know quite a lot about you. But over the years, there's been a divergence in attitudes and how you are and your moral compass. But you're just still, there's this cohesive link between you because of the relationship you had in the past. So it's hard work, you know, and it's like being in your relationship with your partner. You can be in a relationship with a partner, but you're used to a routine. You're used to you're used to hearing their voice. You're used to talking about certain things. So to cut it takes a lot, because you used to, you know, me and my missus, we phone each other all the time. If me and my missus break up, that 7 o'clock in the morning phone call, when you're not making it, you're all over the place. You're wondering what's going on. So, you know, there's a lot of times when it comes to toxic people, that relationship and the connectivity is based purely on that long-term relationship, and it's hard. It can be heartbreaking, especially when you know, and this is probably one of the worst parts of it, you know the good parts of that person, you've seen it, but what's happened now, the other toxic bits are outweighing the good parts and you can't manage it anymore. Yeah, so it's difficult.
I hear that, brother. Alright, so now I want to flip it now and go into the therapeutic mindset of guilt. Got a few questions here. Yeah, so the therapeutic mindset, we'll be dealing with stuff like, you know, clinical, reflective, and educational. So the first question is, like, from a psychological perspective, what purpose does guilt serve in human behaviour?
I think, like I said before, it can push you forward into regards to accountability, being a better person, changing your ways, changing your attitudes. I think it's a great driver for that. All dependent on the person that you are. Like I said before, some people can't think about their guilt in that. I mean, I think a lot of people create change from the guilt they've experienced. Because the worst thing is to not make a change and still have the guilt consuming you every day. So I think for me, it's a great tool for moving forward, changing your life, and being, and if you were a person that, I mean, I know a lot of people that operated in a certain way on the streets when I was younger, and they've changed their ways and turned it around. I can only imagine that something, a factor that played the main role in that was guilt. You know, I know people that have done all kinds of different things they weren't happy about, but now they're upstanding citizens. But guilt must have played a role in them making that turnaround.
Making them self-reflect.
Yeah.
How does unresolved guilt impact mental health over time? Can it lead to depression or anxiety?
Yeah, both of them. You know, it can lead to suicide depending on the situation. I mean, you've got all kinds of situations now. It's like euthanasia. Now, if you've got a dying parent that's crying out for something, and you can't deliver, one, because of the law in the country, two, because you're not up for it, and that parent really doesn't want to exist anymore, that's going to consume you for a long time. I think visual imagery plays such a significant role in guilt, because there's some things that you see in your head. You see people's faces. Sometimes you hear their voices. You know, when it comes to you reflecting on situations that have made you feel guilty. So yeah, depression, anxiety, suicide. People might have long-term conditions, health conditions, and you're on that journey, seeing them deteriorate. and when they pass away, you still think that you could have done more, you know, and where you left then. And that happens a lot in any sort of bereavement and grief, depending on the relationship you had with a person. So it's serious.
Definitely. What are some therapeutic techniques used to help someone to let go of unhealthy guilt?
I think just addressing it, understanding where it's coming from, making a distinction, and this is not so therapeutic, but I think it's helped me, making the distinction between sort of a belief, opinions, and what's actually factual. What's the fact in this situation here? Yeah? Did I do this? No. Did I do this? No. So why am I feeling guilt about it? You know, so you have to break it down and understand you can't shy away from whatever situation has induced that guilt in you. You have to address it head on and start breaking it down. You know, obviously if you experience guilt on a certain level where it's becoming detrimental to your everyday existence, then you're going to have to go and speak to someone to help you with that. But I think addressing it, if you've got anyone close to you that you feel you can talk to about it, because it's difficult to talk about those guilty feelings, that can be helpful, but understand the factual parts of that, because a lot of the time when you start picking it apart and seeing what's factual, certain things aren't facts. You just believe that something's like that sometimes, and then when you go and ask someone about it later on, you might have been feeling guilty for years. Then you go and ask them about it, they didn't even know about it. You're like, oh, but you believe this thing, but it wasn't a fact.
Right. Comes down to, would you say, like perception?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Can guilt become a trauma response? If so, how does therapy address that?
Yeah, I mean, depending on the type of trauma you've been through. I think if you're a person, and you know, the black community know about this well, there's a timeline of passing down beatings and giving out licks. So sometimes I might be a parent, I might be a child that's experienced that. Now, the trauma I've experienced through the beating I've been getting has made me a parent that gives out beatings on my own children. So now I'm beating my own children, but because of my trauma, I've initiated this practice, but now I'm beating my children, I'm feeling guilty about it. You know what I mean? But it couldn't be helped because I'd existed in that trauma. That sort of taught me the way to parent my children by giving out physical discipline. You know, so it can be quite a really deep situation depending on the trauma of the experience and how it's playing out and who it's playing out onto.
How do therapists help clients distinguish between healthy guilt and toxic guilt?
I think that's really, you know, there's addressing the issues, like I said, the feeling of guilt, but I think every modality will deal with it in their own way, and every therapist will deal with it in their, I think as much as there are guidelines, there's a uniqueness to individualism and therapeutic practice. So while addressing it and breaking it down, etc., and sometimes it's just holding a client, especially in situations with bereavement. You just need to hold a client and let them talk through what's going on with them until sometimes they just come to a realization of, all right, I shouldn't be feeling guilty about that. That might take 1 year, 2 years, 20 years. But sometimes you can just hold clients and you work with them while holding them, depending on the level of grief they're experiencing. And you go down that road like that.
What role does guilt play in people-pleasing behaviour and codependency?
Yeah, I tell you, family dynamics are strange. Becoming a people pleaser because of your upbringing, and then feeling upset because you don't want to be a people pleaser. It's quite an intrusive way of being. It's like someone else is inside of you, telling you to do something. You can't say no to anyone, especially in situations where, as a man, sometimes your masculinity is questioned. So you can't say no. Sometimes you may back down in situations. But because that entity's in you, I'll say it like that, that is trying to please all the time. There's a side of you that's there, that's upset that it's pleasing and wish that you could be someone else. You know, it's horrible. I've seen it a lot of time. I mean, I think at certain points in time I've been like that. It's been hard for me to say no, and then you have to understand being a people pleaser and then experiencing guilt because you're doing it, because you feel upset because you're doing it. You have to be reflective enough to break it down and say, all right, what's the worst feeling? Is it me people pleasing? Is that a bad feeling? Or is it me people pleasing and then feeling upset that I'm doing it? If you're feeling really upset that you're doing things for people and you want to say no, then you're going to have to say, all right, I need this feeling to go.
Yeah.
But I'm going to have to work on saying no and just take the leap. Sometimes people exploit you and they know you're not going to say no. And they know that you're a people pleaser. That's how they'll keep it going. You know, ideally in this world you have to look after yourself and your own well-being. I think nowadays in 2025 more so than ever, there's people that are shysty. That's the main word I can use at the moment without using any profanity. And really horrible people that at any given opportunity will exploit you.
Yeah.
Emotionally or on an economic level.
How do cultural or religious backgrounds influence how guilt is felt and expressed?
Well, you know, there's this living oxymoron type of contradictory societies that people exist in. How can you, I mean, it's as basic as this. If you're living by Christianity or Islam or Judaism or whatever you're living by, we live in a society, all right, it's not, we got free will, we're hedonistic people, we got free will to do whatever. But then there's rules set out in religion that restrict you from doing certain things. But we live in a society that's got all kinds of nonsense at our disposal. Whether it's sexualized images, whether it's drugs on the corner, whether it's bad food, whether it's pork and you're not supposed to eat it, whether it's alcohol. We're littered with it. What are you going to do when you succumb to temptation at any given moment? And it might be as little as being out and being a Muslim and having a drink. The guilt then, you know, even then facing your mum, dad or whoever, when you're seeing them, that's still resonating inside of you, that you've taken that drink. So I think religion and that play a major role in instilling feelings of guilt, especially in a society that's littered with things that's opposed to religious doctrines, you know, whether it's, you know, drugs, social media, pornography or whatever.
Hear that? How can someone forgive themselves when they feel an overwhelming sense of guilt for something that they have done?
It's hard to forgive yourself, you know. I can't really give you the recipe to forgive yourself. That's a real, depending on the person, it's a real working through what has happened, who you've affected, if you've affected anyone, is it real? You know, if the situation isn't so hostile or nasty, you need to be able to talk to that person or the persons or whoever. Because forgiving yourself is like this. there's a forgiving yourself, and there's acknowledgement of your greatness. I'm saying that because they're sort of two opposing themes. So forgiving yourself's hard work, and for some people acknowledging how good they are and how great they are is hard. So I think even on a positive side it's hard, but even more so on the negative side.
Right.
It's really hard to show yourself love when something's telling you that you shouldn't show yourself love because you've done something that isn't right. But you know, talking to people always helps. Someone that you can confide in. But if those guilty feelings are so deep and dark, you think, because they may not be that bad in regards to society's norms, but they're consuming you and you think they're bad, you have to go and talk to someone that is not your friend, and that's a therapist or a counsellor, because at least you feel confident that that information is not going anywhere.
I hear you, brother. Is there a link between guilt and self-harm or self-sabotage?
Yeah, when it starts consuming yourself, then you start taking it out on yourself. I mean, like when we spoke about suicide, some people can't project out their upsetness. They'll throw it back on themselves and start injuring themselves. So, you know, there'll be some young people out there feeling guilty about certain things. I mean, self-harm's on the rise, suicide's on the rise. So there's a lot of people out there that, yeah, they will self-sabotage and hurt themselves. And sometimes think that cutting yourself gives you a certain level of release from that guilt.
How can someone begin to rebuild their self-worth after years of carrying guilt?
I think it's mainly about your development. If you've started making the steps, depending on what the guilt's based on, if you've started taking steps forward into becoming the person that wasn't that person that was in that situation, that induced that guilty feeling, I think sometimes it can start fading out because you're thinking about it. I mean, certain things never fade out and they pop up in your head, but as long as it's not consuming your head, but you know, like I said, it can work in a real positive way, guilt. So if you're a person, I mean, everyone's different. You can't give out a recipe to everyone on the planet for a cake and they cook the same cake exactly the same. So I couldn't give out a recipe in regards to guilt and everyone take it, and they'll be able to get rid of their guilt. You know, so it's very individual dealing with guilt, but being reflective about it, and just thinking about moving forward and moving away from that person that you used to be, sort of takes you to a place of it's like it's enlightening. So becoming a new person is like that phoenix situation, innit? You bust out anew and you come out again. That sort of situation happens when you change who you are, and you let go of the guilt, and you become this new person. You're happy with yourself. You're happy that you're not that woman or man anymore.
That's right. And lastly, Kev, if anyone is going through any of the issues we've raised here today, what last words can you leave with the public in attendance?
I think if the situation, think about the beliefs, the opinions and facts. Always identify what the facts are in the situation when it comes to guilt, because a lot of the time what you're thinking about in regards to your guilt is not factual. It's something you believe, or it's based on someone else's opinion. If it's all consuming, go and seek help. If you can't function day to day without thinking about things, or intrusive thoughts are coming up in your head, go and find some professional help. If things are happening on a certain level where, you know, you might need someone to talk to, phone Samaritans, but just find a person that you can offload to it. Like I said, if it's something that you think you can't talk to your friends about, go and see someone outside of that, because I know there's things that people think even that disturb them, that they can't tell their friends.
Yeah. Respect for that, brother. We're going to check to see if there's any questions, but before we do that, can you tell the public where they can contact you if they need any of your services?
Yeah, so therapy.iamme@gmail.com. That's the main place. I'm on. I'm old school, so I'm getting in touch with social network and all that.
Yeah.
So once my Instagram, I remember what my name is and all that.
Right.
I'll put that out there. But therapy.iam.me@gmail.com. Email me if you need a chat. Email me if you are seeking therapy.
Also, obviously, once this is all said and done, we will add your links to all your social medias and your email with this. But let's see what the people are saying. If there's anything there, we can continue. If not, we'll be do. All right. Let's have a scroll. Bear with me, folks. If you've got any questions, please send them now. And let's see what everybody's saying. Someone says here, only way to repent and ask forgiveness. Only way is to repent and ask for forgiveness. I'm not sure what question that was for, but do you think that's the only way to repent and ask for forgiveness?
You can ask for forgiveness, and depending on who you are, you may feel that that's happening. But what happens to the agnostic? What happens to the atheist? What happens to the secular being that doesn't believe in things or operates outside of religion? There's no real thoughts about repenting.
Yeah.
It's a working through in their own heads about how to get rid of the guilt. So it can be quite difficult depending on who you are.
Someone here says, I think the same person said, my sister lost me £1 M house. So it sounds like that sister lost them £1 million house. So I guess a lot of guilt will come from that, yeah. Let's scroll on and see what else is here. Yes, Puri, big up Puri. In your experience, does forgiveness play a big part in dealing or / healing from guilt?
Of course. Like if you can, especially like forgiving yourself and eradicating that guilt. Excellent question, by the way. Yeah, it plays a big role in it. And someone forgiving you plays such a big role. Once you hear those words, because remember when you've got guilt, you're quite tentative. You're on eggshells a little bit. So to get to a place where you can forgive yourself becomes so healing. And if someone can forgive you for whatever past transgression, a weight is lifted.
Yeah.
Plays a major role.
Yeah, dopeness. I think that's it for the questions. Yeah, let me see the time. All right, we've got a few more questions left. So, as I'm going to freestyle the thing, like, have you experienced? I'm not trying to say for you to tell us these things, but have you experienced guilt? And when that guilt has presented itself to you, like, how have you dealt with it?
You can feel guilty for we spoke about parenting before, and I think and as a man and as a black man, with all the type of myths and stereotypes that float around, if you're of a certain disposition, and depending on your family background and what role your dad played or didn't play, it plays a role in who you become as a father. So if you've had your dad around for a little while and then he's gone, that's going to have an impact on how you're going to be as a father. If you've never had a dad around, if your dad's been, in your eyes, shit, that's going to have an impact on you. So, can you say that question again?
Just you know, your standpoint of where you come from, if you've experienced guilt and how you've dealt with it.
Yeah, so I think because I had a certain outlook in regards to being a father, not having a dad around, reinforced in me that I was going to be around. So there was no ifs, ands or buts.
Yeah.
I didn't have a dad, I'm not going to be that guy. I don't know the history underpinning that situation, but I'm just going on how I am as a person and my expectations of myself when I became a father. So with all my children, I've always, you know, been hands-on. But like in my first main relationship with my big daughter, that broke down. It was, you know, for me, could I have tried harder? Could I have done more? You know, guilt was consuming me with that because I didn't want to break up from the mother because we had a family. But when I had to go, I had to go. But that guilt consumed me for years, for decades. And now with my younger children's mum, when we broke up, you know, there was some crying there from my kids, etc. And that broke me down. You know, and there was a lot of guilt there. But, you know, what you've got, from my perspective anyway, regardless of being labelled as a therapist, I'm still a human being that has feelings and has to operate in the best way for me. And I've always had this premise, as long as I can remember, probably from about, when I say that, probably from about my late 20s, that I'm not going to exist on this planet unhappy. I'm going to try my best to do right by everyone, but I'll never be in a situation where I'm putting up with things and putting up with things and I'm not experiencing happiness. How much of my life am I going to live in that realm and dedicate that and give that part of the happiness over to someone else? And while they're happy, I'm not. I can't do that. So even though I experience the guilt, I've still got to look after number one first, because if I'm not all right, regardless of me being out of the home, my children aren't all right. You know, so yeah, guilt consumed me. I mean, I was, you know, I hate talking about it. It seems so cliche talking about street nonsense, but I was the guy that was on the streets doing some nonsense sometimes, you know. And I held a lot of guilt for the person that I became over the years, because in reflection, I knew that the person I was then wasn't really the person I was supposed to have been in my head. I was supposed to have been them because I became them. Yeah. So it happened. But in my head, I wasn't supposed to be that guy. My upbringing was about manners, about timekeeping, about education, about treating people nicely. My mum she immersed me in that lifestyle. Like, if I didn't hold the door open for someone, it could have been a lick. If I don't say please and thank you, it could have been a problem. So I knew that I was brought up better than the person I became, and I held guilt for that for a long time. So, I mean, there's so many different things that you hold, and some things that you feel guilty for a long time, and then it's gone, yeah, out of the blue. And then 10 years down the line, you see someone, and then you remember it, like, oh my God, like, raw. That's happened to me as well, like, okay. Or someone's addressed it with me in a jokey way. So people that know me and know of my past, they have different outlooks on me. Some people will say, oh, Kev's like this, you know, for different things. But I've been in a situation where I haven't seen someone for years, and then we've been talking like, oh yeah, how you doing, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, Kev, remember when you done this, like, and then next minute I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
I had a situation, this was one of the strangest situations ever. So, when I was younger, I used to be running around doing things. I must have left someone waiting somewhere. You know, I used to do shiesty shit sometimes. I used to have people waiting for me. And then because I'd be running around so much, someone would be waiting. I'd say, yeah, I'm nearly there, but I wouldn't be anywhere close. But someone would have to be, they'll be waiting for ages. Yeah. But because I'm running around doing my thing, they're just waiting. But it can breed animosity. No one likes to wait for a long period. And then when I shout, I'm there smiling, saying, there you go, whatever. One time, imagine this, like 10, 15 years later.
Yeah.
One day I used to train in the gym in Wood Green. I was walking in, I just parked outside of the car park and I was walking through the car park. This is 6:30 in the morning. And then in the corner there was just a guy with a hooded top. Just there, sort of looking. This guy must have been following me. So it's 6:30, I'm walking up and he starts walking towards me. And then he comes up to me and goes, remember me? And I said, nah. And he took off his hood, he goes, remember me? And I go, from Tottenham? He goes, yeah. Remember, imagine this 15 years. Remember you kept me waiting, blood. Yeah? I said, brethren, I'm so sorry, man. Like, times have changed now, I'm different now. I don't involve myself in things. He goes, yeah, man, I was upset. And then, like, what? 15 years? But it looked like he'd come to do me something.
Of course, a hooded person, you know what I mean, walking up to you and thinking, what's going on here?
You know, but you exist and you live and you do things and, you know, that person had talked about repenting. And I like that, you know, I see myself as an agnostic, and that's one of the things that, all right, I'm not bound by religious rules or whatever. I may believe in some other higher being or powers, but I've also repented. You know, that word's firmly fixed into my psyche in regards to the person I was and the person I've become, and I had to overcome a lot of guilt for some of my past actions, some of my past behaviours with people. And still building, especially as a sort of kung fu practitioner for so long, and idolising the sort of template as a man from kung fu, just a humble guy that is only up for action when his family's threatened. That's the existence I always wanted to live, but I had to trawl through all the rubbish first and push it to the side, you know, till I got to sort of to a place of feeling better about who I am.
Definitely. Alright, so before we sign off, I'm going to check this chat again, but could you please tell the people again where they can contact you, you know, just in case they want to talk to you about any of these issues.
Therapy.iam.me@gmail.com. The next time we're on, I'll have some other information in regards to how you can contact me.
Intuitively Blessed says, 100, the situations we're put in can't always be helped, but the healing is down to us. Do you agree?
Yeah, it is, and sometimes we need to, it is all down to us really, but sometimes you need someone to navigate you to that place of healing.
Well, my brother, thank you for your time.
Yes, Dave.
And yeah, man, let's people, if you have any ideas of what you'd like us to talk about for next Saturday, shout us, let us know, so we can just cultivate some questions and ideas based on that topic. But yeah, brother, same time next week.
Same time next week.
Peace.
Hey yo, what's outside is within. The mind regulates the hand that masters the pen. The pen is mightier than the sword, but the tongue is mightier still. The stargate to the mind's revealed. The vortex.